Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh, joined by former Congressman Chris Stewart. Chris was on the House Intelligence Committee when he served, and he's a friend of my buddy O'Brien, who always says nice things about you, Chris. You got to be careful about him, though. You never know when he's going to turn on you. Good morning. How are you? Where do we find you?
It's great to be with you. Good morning. I'm here in the beautiful state of Utah.
I thought that might be the case, so you're up early, and I appreciate it, Congressman. I wanted to talk to you about the Bureau, and I wanted to talk to you about Kash Patel, because I support Kash Patel 100%. I think he's going to be confirmed. But there's a lot of loose talk about the Bureau's counterintelligence function. When I was at Justice, and I'm older than you, the counterintelligence thing might have been the best operating department of the Bureau. Do you think it still is, and does it need reform, and what do you make of Kash as the guy to do it?
Well, it certainly, to your questions, it certainly is not the most effective of the organizations within the FBI. In fact, it's been, as we know, entirely politicized. It does need deep reforms. In fact, as Kash has indicated, it may be necessary to take that responsibility out of the FBI. And to your third question, Hugh, look, I've known Kash for 10 years. I know he's very, very bright. We worked closely together. He was our key attorney, our key counsel on the House Intelligence Committee during the entire Russian investigation. He was key to finding out some of these, these malicious political, just nefarious things. That we would see this in the committee, and we think that just can't be. The FBI would never do that. And then we found out that they did do that. And then we'd learn something else. We go, no, the FBI would never do that. And then we found out they did do that. And Kash understands that, which is why he's the exact right person for this position. He knows how deep the problems are. He knows within whom many of these problems lie, and he's smart enough and he's got enough courage that he's gonna go in and fix it. I really believe that he's uniquely positioned to do great work with this.
You and I agree on this, Congressman, but I want people to understand what I'm coming from. My experience at Justice goes back to the Mies years and the Smith years, when the country was full of Soviet agents, East German agents, some terrorists, people like that the counterintelligence experts at the FBI would bring to the office of the Attorney General. There was no National Security Division in the 80s. I don't know what happened to that function, but the country is awash in Chinese Communist Party agents, isn't it? We do need a counterintelligence operation.
No, yeah, absolutely we do. I mean, there's no question about that. And China is the primary, I believe, threat. And most people would recognize that, although the American people don't think of that very often. When they think of counterintelligence, they almost always think of Russia, right? And Russia is effective as well, but I don't think they're the primary threat. And there's even smaller actors. Cuba, for example, is very, very good at exploiting our own weakness, at recruiting people to help them, and then they, of course, pass much of that information they collect on to, Russia, for example. So there's no question that we need it. What we need is one that's focused on catching foreign spies, not political opponents. And unfortunately, what we've seen over the last 6-8 years now is that they've lost complete sight of their real mission.
Yeah, Congressman, my new catchphrase is, and it's drawn from the long-standing agreement that we need civilian control of the military. We need civilian control of the Bureau. There are a lot of great G-men and G-women, but I'm not sure about the top floor of the Hoover Building or anyone in the Hoover Building anymore. When I say civilian control of the Bureau, I mean, I want outsiders. I thought Christopher Wray was going to do that. I don't think he's been captured. I just think he's been overwhelmed. What do you think?
Yeah, Christopher Wray, I don't, as you say, I don't think he's captured, but he's an institutionalist. I mean, in my opinion, his priorities are to the organization and no longer to the American people. And to your point about oversight, it's a really, really good point. And I can't tell you how many times we would ask for information from the FBI, and they would either just tell us no, or in some cases they would open a case and then say, oh, no, we can't tell you that because it's an ongoing investigation. They would do that again and again, create an investigation in order to deny us information. Or in some cases they'd say, okay, we'll share it with you, give us 6 months, And in 6 months, we'd get a documents that were so heavily redacted you couldn't read anything. And we'd approach them again, and they say, okay, well, give us another couple months. And 2 years later, we still don't have the information we're looking for. Look, these guys have enormous power. They have enormous capability. You can't give them that kind of capability and then say, hey, go do what you want. We trust you. A government agency would never do anything they shouldn't do, right? So, we trust you guys. You can't give them that kind of power and not provide oversight and not provide, some kind of enforceable mechanism to where civilians and people who are representing the people actually have the ability to know and to bridle what the FBI might be doing. And last point, Hugh, your point about the top floor of the Hoover building. I mean, look, I have people in my family who are FBI agents. I love them. I respect them, and I completely respect the work that they do and most of their peers. But unfortunately, the leadership of the FBI has in some way gone astray. Some of those people are still there. Once again, that's why Kash is so important, and to have other strong leaders who represent Trump and represent the American people now.
Now, help me understand something, Congressman. At Justice, when Pam Bondi gets there, she gets John Sauer as her Solicitor General. She gets Todd Blanche as her deputy. There are a bunch of divisions like civil rights and antitrust and natural resources and national security. They will get political appointees. When Kash shows up at the Bureau, does he get to bring anybody with him, or is he up there alone?
No, he has some latitude certainly in people that he can bring with him. There are executive positions within that office that he can fill. Now, there's not many, and his team is going to have to be tight. But I think the key for them is to identify people within the bureau who feel the same way that they do, and that is, hey, we've lost our way, we've lost the trust of the American people, and there are agents, there are some senior agents, field offices, for example, who feel that way. They know that they've lost the trust of the American people. They know that they're known for going after Catholics and parents instead of going after criminals. And I think one of the challenges Kash is going to have, and the others with him, is again to identify those people and to promote them and to bring them into their circle of leadership. But again, there are people like that there. They're embarrassed by what they see within their own bureau. If going back to my military days, Abu Ghraib, you may remember that. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
those of us in the military, when we saw those abuses, we wanted them to be fixed. We wanted people to be held accountable. We didn't want that to be the narrative of the military. And there are FBI agents who feel exactly the same way. And hopefully, again, Kash is able to identify them and to take advantage.
Help us out here. There is, of course, there's Main Justice, the Hoover building, the ugliest building in Washington. I walked past it yesterday. And Patel has said he wants to shrink the number of people there, and that's good. How do you know who the special agents in charge around the United States are that you can rely on? And should you move them all, like the U.S. attorneys all leave and are replaced? Should the SICs all be moved and at least put in the new circumstances where they can be evaluated on against a fresh background?
Yeah. Well, I think as a minimum, you've got to do what you suggested at the end, and that is have an evaluation of them all. And I think that's perfectly appropriate. I mean, the FBI director, he serves at the will of the president, and he represents that president's priorities when it comes to law enforcement. And it's fair, and by the way, this is broadly true as well, that it's fair that those people be supporters of the agenda. I mean, a lot of people have been nominated to the president's cabinet or criticized in the media of being loyalists. Well, they should be loyalists. They should be people who support this agenda. They should be people who support the mandate that the president received in the last election. I mean, why is that a bad thing? I mean, why could you presume that you'd want someone in there who's going to oppose the president who was just
And we
elected?
should not be ambushing the president. James Comey, John Brennan, and James Clapper ambushed the president-elect in Trump Tower, and then the FBI ambushed Michael Flynn in his office at the West Wing. That just is a scandal that haunts me.
100%. And here's the only thing you need to know about James Comey. When he was interviewed under oath in about 2.5 hours, 256 times he said, "I don't remember." Who believes that, right? Who
Nobody.
believes that he
Nobody.
just and any other witness, by the way, who said that, they would have repercussions regarding that. You can't just go on the witness stand and pretend you don't remember. Those individuals that you mentioned, and I've interacted with them many, many times, what they did at that time, it will take decades to rebuild the trust within the
It's the same.
CIA. With
Yeah,
Brennan,
it's the same thing with the public health authorities. When you do something
yep,
like that, it is forever in the repair.
yep, no doubt about it. I mean, who would have dreamed 5 years ago that people wouldn't trust the CDC anymore? But it turns out that if
Yeah.
you lie to the American people and you're not honest with them and then you try to manipulate them, you lose their trust, and it takes a long time to rebuild that, if you ever can. And it takes a
Yeah,
huge
that's why I
effort to
think
rebuild.
Kash Patel and Jay Bhattacharya are two sides of the same coin, which is change is coming and it's needed. I want to thank you,
Yep.
Chris Stewart, now over at Capital, Skyline Capital. I appreciate you taking the time with me this morning because you actually know of which you speak. And thank you. I'll call you Major. Thank you, Major.
There you go. Thanks,
Chris
sir.
Stewart, great friend of the program, great friend of my friend Robert O'Brien, and bringing us the truth.